Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe below to get all of my new videos and hit the bell icon to make sure they hit your notifications as soon as you log into YouTube. Thanks. And I think this decision-making criteria that young men are having towards young women is starting to play itself out. Like we're starting to see the fruit of this tree that was planted with Karen culture. We're starting to see it really kind of sprout in this way. And the proof of this that I'm referencing is the natural end state of women who embody Karen culture. And so men, young men, all men, but young men in particular who are in this market, due to social media are looking now and have a full vantage point of what these women become, regardless of political affiliation, by the way. This is not even a right or left issue. This is a spiritual gender issue. And so they're seeing the manifestation of this coddled, entitled, emboldened mindset of like the feminist boss babe movement, whatever. And they're wanting no part of it. I'll just put it mildly. They're not wanting any part of it. They're not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And, you know, they're seeing this kind of resentful post-prime, like whatever you want to call it, like unhappy nature of the end state of women. And it's really, really starting to get ramped up online. And they're saying, you know, no thanks. I don't want any of it, because that resentment always builds on itself. Fear always builds on itself. Emotions always beget more emotion. And there was this hilarious clip, and Tucker's talked about it a couple times, but Tucker said, I think a couple months ago, and he said it again since, and I think it's funny, but it's also, I think, proving more and more to be accurate, to be honest with you. But women that are in positions of higher authority and power are way more violent, way more aggressive, way more control. You know where he said this? And he said this in Kamala Harris's DNC speech where she accepted the nomination for president, where she's ranting about how she's going to blow up all the Middle East again. And, you know, John Bolton wrote her speech and she's like, I'm going to kill all these people and rah and yeah and all this kind of stuff. And so he's like, you know, that's scary if she gets in that. Hillary Clinton was the exact same way, by the way. You know, Nikki Haley would have been the exact same way, by the way. They would have all, like the Middle East would be a parking lot if those women had gotten into it. I'm fully convinced about that. They're far more violent, aggressive, controlling, which has, and you think about like historical examples of this, like Mao Zedong's wife was just as, if not more brutal of a communist than Mao Zedong himself, easily. And again, this is not an absolute. I'm not trying to be sexist here. But when you look at we can only see what we can see. And when you look at the examples that are coming out of this, that are resulting of this rot of Karen culture, there's a lot of fruit on that tree. I'll just put it that way. There is a lot of fruit on that tree with the way that this is ending up. And it's even happening, by the way. I want to be fair. I talked about Nikki Haley earlier on, but there was but this is happening on the right too. So it's not just young conservative women thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get out of here. No. It's happening on both sides of the political aisle as well, which makes it even more frustrating because it's kind of a cell phone of the whole being a conservative thing is falling into the Karen mindset, which is kind of a leftist concept in general. And so Katie Miller, I thought this was a really funny example. I wanted to bring this up. Katie Miller, we talked about this a couple months ago, was just talking with Pam Bondi after the Charlie Kirk assassination about throwing people into jail, like they're doing in Britain, by the way, for saying mean things to people about Charlie Kirk. Katie Miller had Pam Bondi, the chief law enforcement official in the United States, onto her podcast and said, I think we should throw people in jail for saying mean things about Charlie Kirk. And should I think people should say mean things about Charlie Kirk? No. And say that, I'm glad he died or I wish bad things in his family. Like those people are disgusting, obviously, and immoral, obviously. But to throw them in jail for that is insane. The toxic femininity of I care so much about people that I'm going to crush every single person that is in the opposite of the person that I'm advocating for. Off the rails, like off the chisane we're talking about there. And so she had this clip where she went on Piers Morgan's show a couple of weeks ago. And she was on with Cenk Uygur, who runs the Young Turks, and he's on Piers' show all the time. And I don't know much about Cenk Uygur. I don't even know what ethnicity he is. I believe he's Middle Eastern, but I'm not sure. So apologies to Cenk if he ever sees this, I guess. But so he's clearly a non-white guy. So he's clearly a different ethnicity. He's not non-white, and so he gets on with Katie Miller and the whole panel that Piers Morgan does in his show. And Cenk Uygur is a fully naturalized American citizen from what I can tell. He might be an immigrant, I don't know, but I think he's American. I think he's born in America. And so she gets on there and threatens to deport Cenk Uygur on the show. And by the way, her husband, Stephen Miller, is the one who is running the border policy along with Tom Homan. And so she gets up there and saying, I'm going to deport you and we'll send you back to your home country. And Cenk is like, honey, I was born in America. I was born in America. And like, so this is the unhinged behavior. This is the natural end sight of this coddled, entitled mindset that young white women will have if they go and they do not stop it. This is the behavior. This is the natural end state manifestation of the unhinged, wild behavior that can only result from a feminist mindset about being a boss babe, you go girl, like Yas Queen, all this kind of stuff. This is where it ends. This is where it ends. And people can slam me all they want and say all these things, but this is the natural end state with anybody that's become coddled and entitled and whatever. I know a lot of people, one person very intimately in particular, that has been coddled for their entire life, and they are about this much away from complete self-destruction and complete radicalizing behavior, addiction, violence, etc. And we are encouraging this in an entire generation of young women. And I will be very clear. Again, this is not a women need to be put in their place argument. This is not a shut up and make me a sandwich argument. But it is a comment and an indictment about the roles that men and women play and what their incentives are to play them. So when you look at the Katie Millers of the world, the Nikki Haleys of the world, the Hillary Clintons of the world, the Kamala Harrises of the world, you look at who they're married to, and this goes back to men wanting to be championed by their wives, which I think is a natural thing for all men. I don't care how much of a supposed male feminist, which isn't even real, by the way, of a supposed male feminist or like wife guy you are. Doug Emhoff falls in this, obviously. Men hate being treated that way by women, and by their wives especially. Men do not want to be with a man-eater for their wife because it emasculates them and it makes them look and feel weak and helpless. And if you want proof, look at what's happened to Barack Obama. Michelle Obama, seemingly every single week, goes on a podcast and trashes Barack Obama. Just lights him up every single day. Bill Clinton is a husk of himself. A husk. And some people say he's sick, so I don't want to assume anything there. But the Obamas especially, like Michelle Obama hates her husband. She hates Barack Obama. Hates him. Absolutely hates him. And Doug Emhoff is a prisoner to Kamala Harris. A prisoner to her. I mean, absolutely like on a leash with Kamala Harris. And he can say that I love women and I love that my wife was, tried to run for president and then flopped on her face. He hates it. And it showed, by the way, when that thing came out about him slapping that woman. I mean, it's like come on. Like what are we doing here? These men, because of their passivity, by the way, they're not blameless in this. These are passive men that let their wives steamroll them, and no self-respecting man will ever do that, ever. But their wives have been turned into monsters. And like they have been turned into monsters, and people are seeing this and they're like, oh my God, I do not want to end up like Barack and Michelle. I don't want to end up like that. They're wanting to, and young men are seeing this, and they're wanting to run as far away as possible from this type of scenario, as they should, by the way, as they should. And it shows how, it shows how ineffective Karen culture is. And again, this is not specifically designed to one race, one political affiliation, etc., even though it has certainly been inculcated in young white women in particular. But it is a mindset that has been set into women for years. For years. And it is now being activated, catalyzed by a lot of cultural phenomenon, by this wild, crazy feminism, by the transgender stuff, by a lot of other things. And the point of all of this, I have a thing that, I say often to either, people that I'm talking to or my friends or whatever, and I think it's true. We are all programmed by something. We all have a programming inside of our head. We have a way of seeing the world. We have a worldview that we look through. Steve Day says worldview is destiny. We are all programmed, which is true. We are all programmed by something. And young women now, particularly young white women now, are programmed by Karen culture, programmed by it. And until young women get a different set of programming installed, defined by a different set of role models doing the programming, women with institutional power and authority to put this information into the youth and to everybody else, they will continue to spiral, just as young men did, and just as a lot of young men are still doing now when listening to Andrew Tate or Nick Fuentes, for example. We are all programmed by something. And if that programming isn't right, then we're going to have some problems. And a lot of problems, I would argue. And they will continue to spiral if this happens. Young women will. And we should not be shocked by it, because it is, the natural end state of this, which is a class of upset, angry, resentful women that are breeding more angry, upset, and resentful women. And you can hate me all you want for thinking that way or for saying this out loud, but it's true. And we all know it's true if you're being honest with yourself.